Okay, for our Tuesday tech tip, we're continuing on in the email series. And I'm going to warn you, we're going to talk about DMARC today, which is a component of email security. And it's very technical. But if you'll hang in there with me, I think you're going to learn a lot about how email works and how to secure your email for your organization. So stay tuned. All right, DMARC. So what is it? Why should you care? All those kind of things. And I'm going to warn you that this is going to be probably one of the longest videos I usually make, as well as it's going to be pretty technical. This is going to be some textbook stuff with some acronyms that I'm going to explain. So stay with me to the end. Let's get this done. So first, let's talk a little bit about how DMARC works. Well, first, it's a technical specification that describes how email senders can make their email easy to identify using existing free and open technologies. DMARC compliant email is very easy to process, and email receivers have embraced this. DMARC as a common way to figure out the basic identity of an email. It builds upon two existing technologies that have been out there a long time that can associate a piece of email with a domain. SPF, which stands for Sender Policy Framework, and DKIM, which stands for Domain Keys Identified Mail, work in different but complementary ways to create a link between the piece of email and the domain. Now, this is very important that these three components are in place: DMARC, SPF, and DKIM. By themselves, SPF and DKIM can associate a piece of email with a domain. In the language of DMARC, SPF and DKIM generate authenticated identifiers. What does this mean? Well, ultimately, DMARC attempts to tie the results of SPF and DKIM. And don't worry, guys, you're going to see some subsequent videos, and I'm going to talk about Sender Policy Framework and the DKIM authentication piece, so that you can kind of see how those two pieces are working. But basically, what I'm saying here is that DMARC is looking at the results of those two, tying them together, so we get a much more deliverable email, and also an email that is much harder to spoof. So let's jump back in here. SPF and DKIM generate authenticated identifiers. DMARC attempts to tie the results of SPF and DKIM, the authenticated identifiers, to the content, the actual content of the mail, specifically to the domain found in the header of the email. If you look at email, there's something that's called the header, and these mail servers are reading it and just, basically determining a lot about the email. This is how spam filters works. This is how deliverability happens and everything else. So the domain found in the header of a piece of email in the entity that ties together everything is called DMARC processing. Let's look at the D. The D in DMARC stands for domain based. And hopefully you can now see which domain the DMARC is concerned with. Now, because anyone could buy a domain and put SPF and DKIM in place, including criminals, the results of processing SPF and DKIM, that the authenticated identifiers have to be related to that actual domain found in that DMARC header. This is referred to as identifier alignment. Getting identifiers to align ends up being a part of the work deploying DMARC. To make it possible for someone that owns an actual email domain to accurately deploy SPF and DKIM. DMARC describes how feedback can be sent from the domain owner regarding how their email domain is being used across the entire internet. And this feedback can come in two forms: reports that provide a comprehensive view of all domain traffic as seen by the organization that generates the report, and reports that are redacted copies of individual emails that are not 100% compliant with DMARC. These comprehensive reports are delivered in what's called XML. It's a data format, and it includes such messages as message counts, the IP addresses, the results of processing SPF and DKIM. Although some humans and most Androids can read XML directly, what we have is a system that specializes in processing these reports, identifying what steps need to be taken so that normal people can get DMARC into place without having to become some type of experts on email. The report's redacted copies of individual emails are not generated by all email receivers that participate in DMARC. The reason why an email receiver might not generate this type of report spans in three major areas. One is over privacy concern, as the individual emails can include personal identifiable information. And two, the reports can potentially be extremely high in volume. There is a lot of email that is passed in the world every day, like 28 billion, I think, emails per day. And three, the reports are sometimes nice to have because there's a way to have proven to not be required throughout the whole work of doing that. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that you're able to prove what emails have passed and traversed the servers, so that if you ever had to do some forensic work, you've got the logs. Lastly, quite a few organizations don't even want to ask for these types of reports, as they want to avoid any sort of potential ill that could come from areas of privacy. So these reports can shed light on the specific types of abuse that a domain might be encountering. What we're doing is taking these reports and processing them and reporting on them so that these entities don't have to exchange this private information. It can be contained in one portal that is secured. So the visibility provided by the feedback reports when processed by tools like ours give the owner the ability to deploy SPF and DKIM with a very high degree of accuracy. Once an email domain owner is confident that they've deployed SPF and DKIM across all the email streams, the domain owner then can tell the world to act against email that are not compliant with DMARC. In plain words, what that's going to do, if you have your email set up right, is all the servers are going to be talking with all their headers and all this metadata behind it. And then what we're going to be doing is looking at all of these logs, and we're going to be determining that what are friends or foes. And if the whole world were to set this type of system up, we would be in such a much better place, because a lot of this email spoofing and all these things that we're dealing with would go away. So DMARC is a very important part of this process in actually securing our emails. Now, I know this was very technical. If you have questions, if you want to really get into the nuts and bolts of how to set up DMARC, again, a lot of these tools are free. Setting up DMARC is free. Setting up DKIM is free. Most people don't know how to do it. And then tying it back to DMARC so that it can check those logs and make sure that everybody's legit is another service that this service is actually watching over that, and it's alerting, it's reporting, it's collecting data securely, keeping it away from from a personal identifiable information standpoint for all parties involved. And then it can report on who is sending mail on your behalf. It can allow only people that are approved to send email on your behalf. And I probably ought to talk about what that means, sending email on your behalf. I'm going to use an example that's very easy for me. We use HubSpot as a marketing tool. Well, HubSpot is actually sending on our behalf. Some people use QuickBooks to send out invoices. QuickBooks is actually sending emails on your behalf on their web version, and on and on and on. Constant Contact and all types of softwares that are sending email are sending on your behalf. And what you have to do is determine who can send on your behalf. And then using these tools, you allow those, and you can even look at rates and everything. Like if they got hacked and were sending way too many emails or whatever, you can get reporting and know that those things are actually happening. But bigger than that, what you're going to be able to do is actually turn the faucet off on all the people that are trying to send email on your behalf, ultimately spoofing and all of the crimes and the troubles that come with, as well as the deliverability. When your email is set up correctly and all these components are in place, email servers, it's a lot easier for them, and spam filters are looking at all this data. And when all of this is in alignment, I kind of spoke about that earlier, when all of that is in alignment, you're going to have yourself a situation to where your emails are going to get into the inboxes, not into the junk folders, and not being blocked by spam filters. All right, so this is just part 2. I know this was long. If you have questions, let me know. I'm going to go into SPF and DKIM a little deeper like this, just to have the data out there for the people who really want to know. But at the end of the day, email is a huge opening into your network, because you got all your users at varying levels of cybersecurity awareness that are clicking on things. You need to get this stuff set up right. I'm passionate about it. If you need help, let me know.